rising inequality is increasingly a barrier for global economic growth.
Okay, Yaroslav, we're talking about social inequality today. It's such a huge and pressing issue. How can you even begin to approach it?
I think first and foremost, you need to diagnose the state of the world economy and to state the obvious that it is an issue. Rising inequality is increasingly a barrier for global economic growth. And accordingly, what you need to do is to employ a whole array of instruments in order to address this issue. You have a sectoral concentration of economic activity in the oil and gas sector, and you have structural imbalances that have to do with the underdevelopment of the small and medium-sized sector. Clearly, what you need to do in light of the best practice that we see around the globe is to develop human capital and to invest more into human capital. So I think there needs to be more of a discussion both within countries and around the globe about how to coordinate efforts to deal with the inequality issue, because both empirical research and theoretically we see that there are reasons why inequality may be bad for growth.
Yeah, you hinted at it there. You mentioned Russia too, but even on a global scale, I was reading a report that suggested that 50% of the world's GDP is concentrated in the hands of just 1%. So how can that be resolved, or how can it start to be?
Well, I think one fundamental issue is equality of what? Is it necessarily of income, wealth, or should we be talking about the inequality of opportunity and the need to attain greater equality of opportunity as a precondition for arriving at other outcomes that have to do with inequality of income and wealth? And I think if we're talking about the equality of opportunity, which is a target that merits significant effort, I think, on the part of all countries, this has to do with the development of human capital, and especially I would single out education and provision of equal access to educational services, to both pre-college education and higher education and graduate education. I think you need to address this issue of equality of opportunity at the very early stages of the life cycle, so to say, of human capital. And another issue, I think, is clearly that for equality of opportunity to be attained, you need better governance, you need better institutions and competitive institutions, and you need accordingly to deal with issues such as corruption. And those are, I would say, the preconditions for a lot of the other things that generally would then, at later stages, have to do with correcting some of the imbalances that have to do with wealth or income. If we're talking about monetary policy, I would say that the priority is lowering inflation, because inflation affects the poor strata of the population in a particularly negative way. And then if we're talking about fiscal policy, I would say we need to invest more into human capital globally and in Russia as well. And also with regard to fiscal policy, I think countries such as Russia should look into the possibility of introducing a progressive tax system on personal income. Currently, as you know, Russia has a 13% flat income tax. And I think in terms of social justice and in terms of the revenue flow into Russia's budget, which is under pressure because of lower oil prices, increasing some of the tax rates that have to do with the affluent part of the population makes sense both economically and in terms of social justice.
Okay, and I think that links on to the last point I wanted to raise with you today, which is social instability. Again, how can that problem try and be resolved?
When we're talking about instability as such, we need to understand that it is related to other kinds of instability, including economic instability. So I think if we're talking about ways to employ economic tools such as fiscal, monetary policy, structural policy, you need to address imbalances. Again, if we're talking about imbalances in countries such as Russia, such as China, for example, clearly, if we're talking about regional development, those imbalances are quite significant. And I think addressing those kinds of extremes or imbalances would be the best way to avoid the buildup in other kinds of tensions, including social tensions.
Our thanks to Yaroslav Lissovolik, Chief Economist with EDB, for speaking with Dukascopy TV today at the St. Petersburg International Economics Forum. I'm Sam Meredith, and we'll see you next time.